You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Nick Stevens. So,
how's it going?
Mr. Nick, please tell all the people you're not like Saint Nick that comes down the chimney, but you do something else. You bring gifts to many other kids in a way of laughter. So tell me about what you do and what you like about yourself, I guess.
About myself, I have a podcast. It's called Comic Con's Podcast. It's a geek podcast for the rest of us. So it's really not the nitty gritty, like nerdy podcasts that are all over the web now that are just like breaking down these movies, left and right. It's more for like the everyman, if you will, like the everyman who might just like going out to see these movies and having a good time, who doesn't need to, maybe they don't need to worry about how close they are to the comics or even know anything about comic books. So I just thought, it was time for a podcast like that everybody could kind of relate to. And to be honest, it doesn't even really go that far into comic books at all. It just we go off the rails most every episode.
It's a way to shoot the shit in a world that's kind of tense. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And that's actually like, there's so much shit out there in the world that's like just crazy. So it's a good reprieve from all that as well. So
now, is this something you do professionally?
No. My professional job has nothing to do with this. This is a complete separate thing from that. One day, hopefully, maybe that would be awesome. But until that day, I'll do the grind every other day, 5 days a week.
Well, what's your grind?
I grind to the moon base every day. Okay, the moon base, away from home, professional.
Don't be afraid.
9 to 5.
Don't be afraid to tell me your 9 to 5. What is your 9 to 5? My 9 to 5 is at a hotel.
No fear, brother. No fear. But I'm not disclosing.
You're not disclosing?
That's the whole deal, man. If you listen to the show, the whole podcast is I never once talk about my job. I always say moon base, moon colony. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's what can I say? It's a 9 to 5. It's an office job on a moon base in a moon colony, far away. I get up like ass early just to get there.
You're making it sound like Star Wars in a galaxy. Well, it's crazy.
It might as well be.
It's funny because, like, I'm telling you, 9 to 5s aren't fun, but they're just something we choose to do because that is better than not having a job. And I'm like,
got to keep the lights on.
Yeah, but I'm like, honestly, do you want to be miserable just to keep the lights on? Because I feel like most 9 to 5 jobs are just fucking tasking in general. Like, they're not fun. Yeah. They're just something like you don't want to be without a paycheck. And I'm like, maybe it would be true happiness to take that time not having a job, but to find out what you truly want to do. I mean, you do a podcast that doesn't really focus on anything nerdy or anything geek related, but just a way to just kind of relax and dispel the average intensity we all focus on a daily basis.
Gotcha.
It's funny because like where you start to see a lot of podcasts, like at least what they call nerd podcasts, geek podcasts, they focus on specific stuff that deals with stuff that we consider nerdy and being a geek. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you're seeing that become the popular culture now with Marvel movies and everybody wearing a superhero shirt, like things that used to be considered labeled like you're a nerd if you wore that or a geek.
Yeah.
Now is becoming the mainstream.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I remember reading comic books on the back of my school bus when I was in school and many years ago. And I remember getting made fun of for that shit. I remember like getting jumped after high school and shit. Like I was a nerd, but I had plenty of friends. I mean, I was cool with everybody, but it was like, but I remember that being a not so well-received thing. And now it's like you said, it's everywhere. A lot of it's from the movies. I think a lot of it is just, honestly, the nerds grew up and they made the shit. And now everybody's watching that shit. Yeah. Like those same kids that were getting beat up, like they all grew up and now they're the ones in Hollywood making the stuff happen.
Well, they tell you like, hey, that guy you could be picking on could end up owning like a job that or you're working in, basically.
Right.
He's going to own millions of dollars of business, so you better be careful what you say. Did you actually know how Elon Musk started?
No, I don't.
So before he bought a company with his brother and ended up selling, he actually was in a severe bullying like accident. He actually got pushed down a flight of stairs, and he was actually in the hospital for like a good while. Then he went to Harvard and he spent like, I think, pulled out all this loan money, then ended up leaving after 2 weeks and starting his own $5 million company with his brother. I'm like, you might want to be careful that nerd you shove into a locker, because next thing you know, he's inventing something like hands-free toilet paper.
Dude, it's crazy. You don't know people. You could be walking down the street. You could be sitting on a train next to somebody. You don't know people, who they are, what their background is, where they come from. I think, and it's funny with this social media thing, like you and I are connecting now, complete strangers, because we both do podcasts. You reached out to me to come on your show and to kind of talk and do some stuff. And that in itself is a great thing about technology, because there's two people that we would not normally have met under any other circumstances, by seeing each other's stuff on Instagram. But other times I feel like it kind of isolates a lot of people too.
Oh, dude, now this is actually a popular topic with my podcast, because everyone seems to talk about like social media is becoming batshit insane. I'm like,
yeah,
it is only on the concept of we choose to let it control our everyday lives. We really do. We like to look at people on social media and judge them constantly, and then judge ourselves. And I'm like, so we took it out of its simplicity. Let me tell you something. The best app I've ever downloaded for my phone was a comic book app that gave me every single comic I could ever look up on my phone to read and go back through every single beautiful artwork that was behind it.
You got the DC Universe app?
Yeah, I do have the DC. I love how you knew. I love how you knew it.
So good. It's so good.
You know what's better at 2:00 in the morning when you're like just staring at your phone screen, reading a fucking comic book.
Dude, the shows on there are good too, man.
Dude,
like the shows are good. I mean, the old cartoons, I fucking love it.
Have you seen Doom Patrol?
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I've only seen the trailers, but like I've seen kind of like, I know from Teen Titans growing up. So that was my influence with some of the Doom Patrol when it came to like Beast Boy's original team. Like the mummy guy that goes out of his body using that like power he has. Like that's all fascinating shit. Like we're used to the same old Spider-Man, Superman, that concept. I'm like, but there's other like side characters that aren't even side characters. They're just in their own little universe, and they have such a bigger impact, I think, than Superman or something.
Well, DC has a lot of the main difference between DC and Marvel is that DC has a lot of really trippy, creepy, I wouldn't even say necessarily darker, but definitely like out of this world type characters that really don't make it into the limelight as much as the Marvel characters, because they didn't. Like the Doom Patrol, for example, was written by, the run that I grew up on was written by Grant Morris. He's like one of the trippiest writers in the business. And his run on Doom Patrol back in like the 80s, early 90s was just insane. I mean, it had Robot Man, it had Negative Man, the Mummy Guy, as you put it, Elastigirl. But these were people that were tortured, people that had tragic, crazy, angst-ridden pasts, and they're put in these situations because nobody else will accept them. So it's kind of like how X-Men were like ostracized for being mutants, but these people on the surface looked freaky. They couldn't blend in like X-Men could. Yeah. On the surface, you could tell they were disformed or had some kind of disfigurement. So
it was like the Coen brothers, basically. It's like a Coen brothers comic book, because the whole entire aspect of it was you had these people where they had this affliction or something wrong with them, and it actually, they learned to better themselves and use it to the best of their ability. Like, okay, so what do you love more, DC Universe or Marvel Universe?
I mean, I've always been a Marvel guy. I grew up on Marvel. I grew up on X-Men. I grew up on, the Punisher. I mean, I was just always loved the Marvel storylines, the Avengers. Most of the comics I have are Marvel. But that being said, Batman has always been Batman. My son, he's like 2.5 years old now. He just got into Batman. And for me, it's like, I couldn't be more prouder. It's like, I told my parents the other day, it's like however proud you might've been, like having me baptized or after my first confirmation class, that's the equivalent of me being proud of my son for knowing who Batman is. You know what I'm saying? Like now I can die and everything's taken care of because now at least he knows who Batman is. That's how much of a nutcase I am. So I love Marvel, but I love Batman too.
I like both series, but I feel like when it goes to like just how Marvel chooses to kind of replace an actor or make like they did that with Captain America. They made Chris Captain America. I look at him and I say, "No, you're the fucking Human Torch. Don't give me that shit. Like, don't."
Oh man,
that.
He crushed it though, dude. I mean, I can't even envision anybody in that role.
He did good, but every time I see him, I'm like, just say the words you want to say. Flame on. Just
flame on. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
See, the weird thing is like, they had okay, so one of my all-time favorite DC heroes, and a lot of people give this movie complete shit all the time, and it is the Green Lantern, okay? They gave Ryan Reynolds that, now I agree. They did not do the movie justice in any meaning of the word. But it was the first movie for that superhero. And I was a strict fan from the Justice League where the Green Lantern was actually black. And it was, seeing that movie, I was like, love it, hate it. I'm going to watch it and I'm going to enjoy it because this is the one movie. Like, it's like Shazam. I love Shazam's aspect.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, I love Marvel Universe too, but I feel like nowadays they're always kind of diving into another one. They're constantly replacing Spider-Man. I'm like, dude, Spider-Man is Tobey Maguire. Stop messing around.
Well, let me go back to Green Lantern, okay?
Okay.
First of all, I love Green Lantern. I agree. Great character. I was one of those guys in my group of friends, in my little circle, my small sphere of influence, that when that movie was coming out, I was the only one hyped on it because I was like, guys, it's comic books and space. It's like my two favorite things. Here it is. It's going to be awesome. Ryan Reynolds is great. And even the trailer didn't like overwhelm me with like, hype, but I was still stoked on it. Opening night, man, I'm in that theater. And let me tell you something, dude. They don't spend nearly enough time in space. More than half the movies on Earth. The villain, everything about it. We see Sinestro at the very end, you know what I'm saying? In the mid-credits. And by the way, side note, casting was amazing. I loved fucking Mark Strong. Mark Strong as Sinestro. But the whole movie should have just been in space. You know what I'm saying? Like, fucking take us to space.
Let me give you a little alternate universe here. Okay, so I love the concept that they had this one force, this one superpower in space where it was a bunch of different aliens off different planets and just a bunch of like these people that were selected to be these protectors. I love that concept.
Me too. Love it too.
That boggled my mind that there was there was one from every planet. Like, if you ever seen the movie Absolutely Anything?
Dude, I have. Yeah, I own that. Simon Pegg, right?
Yeah, where they get the aliens choose one person on Earth and give him any power, and he's like has a click of his hand. That is like that is what it was though. Like, people gave it shit because they're like, the Green Lantern's stupid because he only gets his power from a lantern. I'm like, but no. He's a protector for Earth, basically. Like, he's the voice of us. Like, if we were gonna vote someone to go speak on behalf on us, that one person is the voice for all of us. So whatever he does up in space, whatever he does on that core system that they all live on, that's representing Earth. That's representing our human race, and it's like there's going to be, I honestly think if we were going to meet aliens, there's going to be a point where they're going to choose like one of us, give us some type of power, and then figure out if this is like, if we choose to use it in a good way or bad way.
I hope you're right. I hope we get to Star Trek days one day. I think the whole world should look forward or anticipate, not even anticipate, but aspire to rather, and wish to become like Star Trek, where we can one day all get along and seek new life and seek past our differences.
I'm a Star Wars fan.
Hey, no, nothing wrong. I'm a Star Wars fan too. I'm just talking about the, like the U.S. Federation and all that, the U.S. Federation of Planets. Everybody working together, different aliens from different backgrounds.
people
You
like
know?
want to sit here and be like, "Oh, aliens! They just want to control us and take us over." I was like, "Who's to say they're not just these beings that want to help out where they can, but they also want to destroy anything that has
Right.
intentional violence to it?" I mean, you're telling me aliens are looking at us, if they are, and looking down at us like they're not ready, they're not even close, they're destroying themselves, they're causing this war and trauma. It's like maybe that's keeping them from it, at least making contact. I mean, I'm not a
Right.
big paranormal or whatever supernatural guy, but I'm like, you got to be open into all little realms, especially when you're just going to dive off into something. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to think that there was a bunch of aliens in a spacecraft right now looking down at us, listening to like our music now, and then judging it back in the day? Like you just see a bunch of aliens in UFO with their heads nodding, going, "What is love?" No, 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 no.
Dude, I think there has to be something else out there, but I kind of agree with you in the sense that if there is any cognizance or any awareness of us being, even here from other entities or other aliens, or maybe they've already been here, you know what I'm saying? I kind of agree with you. Like, it's kind of like, what does that kind of remind me of? That movie Wall-E, with the robot, at the end of the world, and you think it's the end of the world, but it turns out that the humans have just wasted the earth, so now they're all in space. Like, I mean, we see it all the time on the news. Every time you turn on the news, you see something like more devastating to remind you of how like crazy and horrific humanity can be. So, like, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's not that far up to imagine that some other entity can look at us and be like, "Holy shit!" But at the same time, they could also be blown away by, I don't know, fucking something as easy as
Diet
ice
Coke.
cream. I was gonna say ice cream. Yeah, Diet Coke. There you go.
Diet Coke.
Yeah,
Whoa.
something as easy as that. You never know. I mean,
Or no, let's say Diet Dr. Pepper, because it's like no calories, but all man. And then the alien,
oh man,
they fucking got it.
yeah, they got it.
They're the elite race. We know space travel, but they know Dr. Pepper.
Maybe they'll hear our podcast somehow. They'll pick it up into the the universe.
If an alien was going to come and pick me up and be like, "We've listened to your podcast and we think you're the most knowledgeable of all the humans," I'm like, "Do you fucking even listen to my show?" And they're like,
Right.
"What?" I'm like, it is half of the time it's either talking about taking a dump, or the other half of the time it's just talking about aliens. And then there's a lot of times we talk about society and, views. And it is basically, it's just a conversation with someone. So I'm like, it all depends on who's on. Like, it goes in so many different aspects, is which I love about it. Cause I mean, each one is like a fucking road turn. Like, you're randomly driving straight.
Mhm.
Next, it's a freaking UE 180 all the way to the left. You're like, okay, here we go.
That's the great thing about the podcasting, man. I love it. I've always loved podcasts. My commute is so far, so that's how I kind of got into it. There's only so much music you can listen to when like you're sitting in traffic or sitting on a train, but I love Joe Rogan. I love Mark Maron. I like the Bobby Lee podcast. I don't really get into like the serials too much. I like a lot of like comedian podcasts. I won't listen to a lot of those like true crime podcast. I just can't. Like, I'm like, I see enough of that.
I don't even like watching the show, to be honest with you. Half the time, like, you watch CSI, you know how
dude
that is.
I can't.
One-liners, man. They just
I can't
pop up to the dead body in the middle of the park, and they're like, "Guess it wasn't a energizing jog." I'm like, did you just say that? Like, I would hate to witness that in person, and some dude like bend down to a body and say that, and I just look at him and like, "You heartless bastard."
Yeah, you're a piece of shit.
This guy just got mugged in the park trying to make his life better at 2:00 in the morning, and you just said,
yeah.
And they always got something like with like a deep accent to it, like, "In a world where this man thought he could jog in safety," and I'm like, "What's happening?" I see
the gas station.
It blew up.
Yeah.
It blew up.
The prices have raised, but so did his cholesterol. Yeah, it's never good.
Dude, there's nothing better than a gas station burrito at 2:00 in the morning. Let me tell you something.
Oh, it's been a long time, brother. It's been a long time since I had a gas station burrito. Let me tell you.
I actually did this thing in my local community, actually helped it out in a way. What I did was, they have gas station sushi. So I bought it one time and got severely sick. So I kept buying it until they took it off the shelf. And the guy knew it was making me sick. He was like, "Sir, why are you buying it if you know it makes you sick?" I'm like, "Because you're doing this to me. You're doing it to me." And he's
Did
like,
they go out of? Did they go out of business, or did they just stop selling the sushi?
they stopped selling it.
Oh.
They straight up took it off the shelf after like the 8th time I went in there with like, I was like, dude, I'm on the borderline of colon cancer right now. I hope you know this. And I just kept grabbing it.
Man.
He's a good guy though, but he just was like, I can't watch you suffer, because he's like, dude, you look like you dropped like 5 pounds. I was like, yeah, it's been nothing but shit coming out of me.
There is a tier level of gas station foods that I feel like you can acceptably eat for a long period of time. I feel like most things fried will last for a long time, and you can probably do a couple of years of doing that. But sushi, I don't know, man. I don't know if sushi would make that tier for me. I don't know if I would be so daring. Like
Yes.
I've done the late night sub or the late night, like you said, the late night sushi.
Do you have a 7-Eleven where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was 7-Eleven. They have the taquitos, the buffalo, all that on the roller. If you go at 1 o'clock in the morning, this is how I spend most of my high school, like just getting stoned and going to 7-Eleven at 1 o'clock in the morning. I would grab, like, I'd be like, can I get one of those? And he'd just be like, you can have them all. And you just put them all in a giant bag and just give them to me. I'd have like 20 in the thing because he's probably going to throw them out anyway. I just sat there in front of the store eating them. And like, he was like, all right, like it was a shift change. He just saw me. And I'm just sitting there munching down on buffalo freaking taquitos. He's just like, that guy's going to have a good night. And I'm like, I'm already having
a good night. Oh man, taquitos, big bites.
Okay. So this is a little bit of a tangent, but when it comes to starvation, don't you think they could end that if like the people, like, you know how much food
with taquitos?
No, not well. That would be a terrible way to end starvation. People would actually be getting cramps all the fucking time. But
yeah, maybe so.
When it comes to when food expires at like a grocery store and they take it off the shelf and they won't sell it to you, instead of donating that food, knowing that even though it might expire on that day and it's not opened, it still has a couple weeks left to it. But what they do is they throw it in a dumpster. So a homeless person asking for it, they can't give it to you because it's against FDA regulations, but they'll throw it in the trash knowing that you're going to hop in the trash and get it. And they'll sit there.
But don't a lot of bakeries and stuff donate like their leftover stuff to homeless shelters? I thought they did.
Some private bakeries do, but Krispy Kreme, all those places, they throw them right in the dumpster out back. I remember I discovered that when my buddy rolled up to the bus stop in the morning, had a trash bag filled of fucking donuts. I was like, where did you get?
So they're in the bag.
No, they throw them in literally in a legit, like if you're going to have a trash bag in your house and you just took the donuts, put it in that and threw right in the trash.
Oh, okay. So they're you can eat them.
They like, you could ask for them like as they're throwing it out. And
I know.
That's so fucking, that's so cruel.
I know.
Like, let me
It's fucked.
You hop in the trash can and feed.
I wonder if that's an actual policy, like in their like restaurant, like in their SOP, their standard operating procedure. They have to mandate that they put all their trash in there for people to eat afterwards. But they say, make sure the homeless like see you throw it away. So
so you get that. You get
too far.
It's all conspiracy. See, no, it's funny because my buddy works at a Dunkin' Donuts, and I always wondered why, like, usually when you're at the drive-thru and you order, they give you the price of what it's going to be before you roll it to the window. But no, what Dunkin' Donuts does? They just go, proceed to the window. And I'm like, well, what's the price? Because I don't know. Because my cousin orders like a special espresso coffee with like 3 shots of whatever the hell, I don't know, horse cum, I don't know. And he goes into like deep, like into his coffee order. And I'm like, you never know what it's going to be when we roll up. And next thing you know, it's $8 for a coffee. So my buddy, when he works.
So you don't drink coffee?
I do, but I don't go out, and I believe in $8 spending on coffee.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either.
If you go to Starbucks, you're paying for the option of being at Starbucks.
Yeah, I've never got into coffee, but if I did drink coffee, I would want to believe that I would just be fine with like Dunkin' Donuts or 7-Eleven or McDonald's. Like I'm not a fancy guy, so I don't understand all those, $9, $10 coffees. I don't know.
Well, see, the thing is, when you go and pay a $9 or $10 for a coffee, you're basically paying for a milkshake. You're paying for a fucking dessert. You're not paying for
and a hand job. I mean, really.
It's really just a hand job for your taste buds. Like it's nothing.
It pretty much is.
It's the most. It's also the ridiculous thing. Like when you pull your laptop out and you're at like a Starbucks or something, everyone's like, it's just a better atmosphere to work. I'm like, honestly, you're just doing it so people see that you're working on your laptop.
I've always wondered that because so on occasion I'm allowed to work from home, and I had to work at I can't remember why I had to go to the Starbucks, but somebody was at my house doing some work at the house, so I had to leave. So I went to Starbucks to use their internet, and I'm not even getting anything. I'm just sitting there working, and I start looking around, and like I swear I saw at least 5 different people wearing the same scarves and the same coats and the same wire frame glasses, and I felt like I was in the Matrix, but it was like a hipster Matrix. You know what I'm saying? So it was like everybody else was like, instead of like in regular suits, like
it's like when you walk around, like I'm a pretty nice, easygoing guy, but I sense bullshit so easy. So there's this thing called Truth Wizards. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So there's apparently a small fraction of a population of people in the world that can actually detect if somebody is lying. They can sense basically bullshit. Basically, when someone's giving you a story, like I've had people come on the podcast and they tell me what they do and tell me like, oh, they won't go into it and then go off this. And the whole time I just know in my head, like this is complete lies, but I don't care because it's all about the conversation. It's all about like letting you release from your everyday stress. Like a lot of people don't love their job. I don't love my job, but it gives me at least the time and the money to live so I can be able to do something like this and have these amazing conversations. But I've had podcasts with people I can sense they're giving me a little bit of the horse on a leash type thing. Like, it's not true. It's you're leading me on somewhere. And I see it when I go out. It's like when someone's on there, like pull up your phone whenever you're like around people and you just sit there and go, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. Like, we do it to get out of conversation. And then next thing you know, they're not even on the phone. Their phone goes off. You're like, dude, you're not even in a call right now. You're just doing something to display to people this fake persona. I'm like, why do we walk around so much acting a certain way knowing it's not us? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, and I think going back to the social media thing, I think it's crazy how before all this, people were probably not as much inclined to take as many pictures, and especially when they were like going out and doing something, you know what I mean? Like maybe if they were traveling overseas or going away on a vacation, they'd bring one of those disposables, or somebody would bring a camera, they'd take some memories. And that would make sense. But like the everyday type shit, like taking the picture of the meal, taking a picture of all that shit. And I've been guilty of that shit, especially like when Instagram first came out. I remember I'd be like out places, be like, all right, here I am, And then it's hard to kind of cross that line when you have something like a podcast, because you end up like, you want to promote it, but you're also like, how far is too far? Am I being that guy that's just posting every 5 minutes? So but I think it's weird how the whole concept, and I can remember what it was like before social media, and then like kind of like easing into it, especially like not having it every day. And I think my generation might actually be worse than the younger generation because we didn't have it before. We didn't grow up with it. So now we're those guys.
Exactly. Lost time, yeah.
Exactly. I feel like ours, like especially kids of the 80s, like we're the worst with it because we're like, no, I gotta take a picture at this comic book convention. I gotta take a picture here. I'm at the McDonald's, and before I know it, I see like my peers like on Facebook, like, I'm like, man, why are they taking a picture of the grocery store? Like, what?
It's funny.
Like,
it's like, all right, so there's a famous comedian, his name's Joey Diaz. Now he has a good rant about why people hold up like a beer in a picture and why
he's funny. That guy's really funny.
He hits
He's got crazy stories.
He hits it right on the head when he says like, why do we hold a picture up with like a Starbucks or hold up a picture with like a beer when we're in a photo? Why don't we set it down and take a photo? And it's the whole idea. You want to show people that you party out. You want to show people that you live a certain lifestyle. You do a certain.
I guess that's why. Yeah.
Amount of fun. I'm like, why does it fucking matter? Like we have this thing inside of us, all of us, that interests us. That is something we never really want to bring up because we're afraid someone's not going to be loving it. Like, if you were going to sit there and be like, so I do a podcast about nothing but IKEA furniture, there's going to be people out there that are going to hate your guts. But then there's going to be people out there that love doing that. So I'm like, when you focus on something specific, like for you, when you focus on like just being just a geek, just enjoying like the stuff that people label in this way, you're hitting a certain audience. You're hitting to the people that feel like they can't go and express themselves in that way because they either got picked on or they feel like it's just a nerdy thing to talk about. I'm like, no, it's a sense for you to relax. It's a sense for you to fucking be a person. Like, how many times I guarantee you that jock goes home and watches freaking Captain America or something on the TV because he enjoys that aspect. You know what I mean? How many girls went?
Well, that's one of the things that's one. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I love about the time we're living in now too. Like the give and take with it is that it's more accessible now to everybody than it ever was before. And so, like, on one hand, while it's oversaturation and it's all over the fucking place, on the other hand, I mean, they made a fucking Doom Patrol show, and that's something that would have never happened. I could never have perceived that happening, or a Swamp Thing show, or an app to come out on your phone where I can have this computer, my phone, read a comic, and watch a show about fucking Swamp Thing. Like, that is fucking incredible. Like, that to me, I mean, I never would have fathomed that. I never would have believed that could possibly be a reality. So it's a give and take. It's like, on one hand, some days I'm like, Jesus Christ, this world's going crazy. And then I'm like, everything's fine. Like, we're good. You know,
I think we get
everything's in doses.
We get nulled to so much of it. Like, we're getting fed all these like shootings and stuff, and people are just like, it's another one. Then they turn the channel. Like, you don't want that to be a thing, but you also have to realize like that shit's always been going on. We just have a way of seeing it so much more now. Like, it's right on TV as soon as you wake up in the morning. Like, you don't see any good things in the morning. Like, I think what was crazy was if you were like a kid, watching the news, that goes in your head when you go to school. So like, but you chose to watch the news. Nowadays, you're being forced before you even, like, as soon as you check your phone in the morning, oh, Amber Alert. Oh, there's a tornado. Oh, there's a shooting. Oh, there's this article from CSN. It's like kids don't even have the option to turn that off anymore when they look at their phone. Like, it just pops up in the middle of their emails or something, or if the kids even have email. I don't use an email. I feel
like I'm regressing though, man. Like, I'm 37, and I feel like now, like, I took all the new shit off my phone. I took all that shit off. And I feel like, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like I'm regressing. Like, I'm reading comics again. I don't have any desire to stay up.
You're going back to like the Amish lifestyle, dude. Like, I get up at like 2 a.m., 5 a.m., these types of times. And then I'm up, and then I go to bed at like 10 p.m. and all my friends are out partying. Like, you sleep like an old guy. Even my grandpa says shit about it. He goes, you sleep like on the same schedule as me. I'm like, because you basically taught me like, get up early, work, and then go home, and then you're in bed at a certain time so you can get your rest.
Yeah.
Like, you taught me to do that. So that's what I'm doing now. And I see it, like, it keeps me out of a shit ton of trouble, dude, to be honest.
That's good.
Because younger generations, all they're doing is going out drinking and driving. I've had buddies that have like gotten into severe accidents where we talked about on the podcast. Like, one of my buddies looks in the mirror and his whole face, body is everything scarred and changed for the rest of his life. Like, he has foot almost ripped off. Now he goes and he went a complete opposite of when we graduated. He literally was all like this party guy doing like all these crazy things, drinking, driving, doing all this like insane type kid stuff. Now he goes to high schools and speeches to kids about the dangers of drinking and driving because he had such an impactful thing in his life. And I'm like, I want people to recognize shit like that before it happens. Like, you don't want that shit to pop up later in your years and experience something bad that you have to go through the rest of your life having.
No, and it shouldn't have to get to that point where like somebody has to go through something that traumatic. But unfortunately, like, for some people, like, that kind of trauma is what shifts people out of that everyday apathy and everyday blah, 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 I mean, I didn't party at all in high school, but then somewhere in college, I crossed the line. I just went 0 to 60. And like, it was like drink. And I mean, I drank in high school, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't like hardcore to excess. But like, after that, like, sometime in college, there was a line, and I don't know where it was, but I crossed it, and it was like all the fucking time. And then I look back on those days now as an older guy and a dad, and I'm like, man, it was a miracle I'm still fucking alive. You know what I mean? So
Well, I got lucky to stay away from alcohol. My dad actually wasn't like, he's a DJ, and he was also like, he fought alcoholism. So like,
wow.
I like him watching what that did and being around that, like seeing the bad moments of it, and then kind of seeing his kind of like the everyday struggle to kind of stay off of it. It's like, I didn't want that in my life. I definitely didn't want something. I think people like me need to look at it in this aspect. Like, if you have a problem with authority, if you have a problem with something controlling you, like I do, I use it like, I'm not going to give anything any more of a shot to control me. My grandma smoked cigarettes insanely, and then one day cigarettes were like $8 a pack, and she was like, fuck that, and then stopped and hadn't smoked in like 40 something years. Like, she just was like, no, that's not happening. And I'm like, you need that.
Good for her.
You need to have that backbone where you realize like something's having control over you. Like, I saw that I could kill 2 bottles of Jaeger and not get drunk. Like, my brother was like, yeah, bullshit.
Yeah.
And he's older than me. And then he bought 2 bottles on my birthday, and he's like, all right, do it. And I did it. And he was like, how are you not messed up right now? I was like, I don't know. I have a really high tolerance, even though I don't drink. And like, that's when like my dad's like, it's because it's in your blood. Like, alcoholism is an actual, like, it's in your genes, basically. Like, you know, if you start to drink,
man.
and like, people don't see that. People are like, nah, you have to develop that. I'm like, no, there's addiction to something in all of us, whether it's like a certain food, whether it's like something you do excessively, you get freaky about. The problem is you don't want to feed into that anymore, because then if you look at it, like, if you want to overcome addiction, like, I went to school for chemical dependency because a lot of kids in my area started experiencing opioid addiction. So I was like, let me dive into this and let me try and maybe help out the community. I was listening to stories about moms who were addicted to heroin, that were pregnant and having children, that were coming out with these horrible things. And I'm like, there's an addiction to something in all of us, and we choose to let it cripple us to our knees. And if we just looked at it in the light of, this thing's fucking controlling me and I'm not me anymore, then you're going to look at it completely different, and you're going to want to stop it. You know, I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's hard, man. I mean, people don't get it unless they're involved in it somehow, kind of like what you were touching on. I mean, the people that don't understand it or don't really understand the background of addiction or alcoholism and stuff like that, they don't understand because they've never experienced it or they're not a part of it. But the people that have been affected by it, either relatives or alcoholics or drug addicts, anybody with addiction, I mean, it's a real thing. It's a real disease, and it's out there, and it kills people every day, man. It's a miracle that anybody can even surpass the grips that it can have. So,
well, the thing is, it's like, it's a fucking demon. Like, if you think about it, it's like the boogeyman. It's like, why don't you take that drink, Johnny? Why don't you take that drink? And you're just like, if you really look at it, alcohol, even though it's impacted me in such a bad way, I have literally said that I think it's also a good thing. It's a social lubricant. You know, I have a buddy that can't really express his emotions very well, but when he has a drink and he gets a little bit drunk, he's like, I fucking love you. Like, and I've had moments with him where he's like, you know, it's those moments I'm always going to remember. And even though we don't talk every day, we're still connected. You know what I mean? I know he's always got my back. And like, that's when I say, like, everything's fine in moderation, but when you start to overconsume and start to take things a little too far, you're either doing it because you think it's cool, or you're doing it because you have no control.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think you got something there. I think a lot of things. It goes back to that moderation thing. I mean, we've all heard our grandmother or grandmother's grandmother or mother say, you know, just everything in moderation. You know, don't eat too many jelly beans before dinner. You know, don't eat too many candy bars. You know, and it's like, it kind of all goes back to that golden rule. Like, people that eat that kind of shit every day, they get diabetes. People that drink every fucking day, they develop problems. You know what I'm saying? Smoke, that kind of thing. You know, we just need to, you know, loosen the reins a little bit. Although I will say this, I've never had any problems from masturbating too much. And let me tell you something, I've masturbated a whole lot. So
look, after 17 times, it starts to hurt. You got to learn to step it back after a while.
Yeah, 17 might be the mark. You might have me there.
When you're a kid and you just can keep going, like, after a minute, like, you know, back in the day, like,
dude, are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, I remember like having just time on my hands, you know, like time. And just like, what are we going to do to kill the time? Well,
You had
How's it
more
going?
time on your hands. You had
Man beef.
you had
Kid beef.
Yeah, he had some kid beef. Oh, that sounded a little wrong.
Yeah, that sounded real way wrong. That's not how I intended it. My kid
Where's
beef.
the
No,
beef? That's what that
my
guy
beef.
was trying to find out.
That's what it was.
So we need to
That's what
bring
it
that
was.
back. Have you ever seen that movie? What is it? The one with Jamie Kennedy, with the guy that played Malibu's Most Wanted. It was about where he was breakdancing.
I never saw that one, but I've seen Malibu's Most Wanted.
Or so he's in this movie where he's like a breakdancing, like at like the age of 14, and he does this trick flips, like a backflip, and he lands on his head. So he goes into a coma and he wakes up like 30 years later. So he's thinking like it's still back when he was a kid, like the same time, the generation.
Right.
And so he's like trying to reincorporate himself. I'm like, that's fucking all of us with social media. We're at a point where it hit us so hard where now we're just on autopilot. And I feel like one day we're just gonna wake up like, what happened to freaking when George Bush was president? You know, what happened to when this stuff was going on? Like, what are you talking about? That was like 30 years ago. It's like, what happened? It's like, well, you wouldn't stop staring at your damn phone screen so much, and now your grandma's dead, your mom's dead. You know, all these family members that you should have been spending time with are now long and gone.
Right. Well, that's kind of I'm glad you brought that up, because let me ask you a question with that. Like, so as a younger person, do you recall, do you think we have like, because I feel like the 80s was obviously the 80s, right? We can identify that. The 90s was definitely the 90s. We have some clear indicators of what the 90s was. But I don't really know what the early 2000s were versus the 2010s versus now we're going to be going into 2020. Like, I don't know. I can't think of specific, obviously there's historical events, but I can't think of like pop culture shit that like signified those, you know what I mean? Those eras.
So 2000s, we would have Green Day. We had
that's still 90s though. I mean,
that's 2000s.
They came out in the 90s though.
Green Day?
Yeah.
They started in the 90s, but they didn't really get big until the ending of the 90s, technically. So it was really.
I mean, they got huge. They definitely got huge in the early 2000s.
It was, you know, that was the start. Like you saw, what was it?
But other than like, so I mean, like maybe I'm thinking more like styles. Like 90s was grunge. So what the hell was early 2000s?
I guess more of a, I guess like, I don't know. I wouldn't, you know, they have their own genre on Spotify called 2000. So
I know, I saw that and I'm like, what the fuck does it even mean?
But I was listening to it and I was like, I know every single song that's playing right now.
You're probably right.
I used to work at a water park when I was like 14 years old, and we right where I was like on the lazy river, just throwing tubes out of the water, like any extra ones so people could have them for the slides. And they had a speaker there, and this speaker played the same station, but it was the same 5 songs basically over and over and over again. It was ever what was trending. It was that damn song by We Are Young or whatever, the fun song, you know.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
We are young. I will fucking stab anybody that plays that shit because it's like I hear it now and it brings back that memory. That's what I love about music, to be honest with you. Whether it's a song, like it's like when you smell something and it brings you back to like a certain point in your life that you remembered. Like I love that nostalgia feeling, dude. I'll never forget like smelling like if I cook up anything that has like, you know, pepperoni and cheese on like a piece of bread or something. That was like my childhood snack when I watched like cartoons and stuff. It brings me right back to those childhood moments where I'm like, yo, the world was not, it wasn't so impactful to me. I didn't know what bills were. I didn't know what gas was. I was just enjoying life and enjoying my summers. And like nowadays it's like, oh, you have all this stuff. Like, I feel like people need that nowadays. Like, I don't want to see like my cousins, they're all little and like you have a kid. So it's like, you're going to see it. Like they're on their phone most of the time. They're on their tablet most of the time playing games and stuff. It's like, you don't want to get nostalgia off your phone.
Right.
You know,
what was your go-to cartoons? Like what was your
Oh, dude, Johnny Bravo. Are you telling
Johnny
like,
Bravo? Okay.
I'm pissed that would not play today because of the concept of like being a masculine man hitting on chicks in such an aggressive way. I'm like, but it highlighted the best aspect. I've talked about it before. It highlights the best aspect. If you're a dick, a chick is not going to like that. They're going to go after the nice guy.
Right.
And then like Courage,
because he was kind of a parody, even though I remember the cartoon. He was a parody of all that in a way.
Well,
So he wasn't like, it wasn't like you were supposed to look at that and be like, that's what you should aspire to. Like he was a parody of that over machismo, over the top, macho guy, right? I mean,
well, we made a flip flop in society. Now you have to be the guy that has the ripped muscles to get the chick. And it's like, no, back in the day, Johnny Bravo showed you that he could be the rippest, like most handsome guy out there. But you walk up to a chick and go, "Hey, sexy mama, wanna take a ride?" Like next, like something like that. And then she gets slaps him right in the face, and then goes right after the nerd that literally was like, "How are you doing today? It's nice to see," like being the silent, like but helpful, nice guy. And then like also like you want to Courage the Cowardly Dog. Okay, I have a couple buddies that do a '90s podcast. And they just talk about the wonderful things about the '90s. I'm like, no,
I love it already.
No kid today is going to know what it was like to walk up to that red little coupon machine at the grocery store, pull that coupon out, and just have all these mindless coupons to the point where your parents were like, "What the like? Stop grabbing those things."
Yeah, I miss the fucking Blockbuster only because the Blockbuster was more than just looking for a movie. The Blockbuster was like, here, we're going to actually, this is part of the hangout with your friends, like going to the store and looking for the movie together. You know what I'm saying? And like searching. Now I know I'm also very grateful for Netflix and Hulu and all that shit. I love that shit. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of like the community and the camaraderie of like going to a place and like spending the whole Friday night, like a good solid hour at the Blockbuster looking for the right movie, whether it's a cheap, cheesy zombie movie or a horror movie or an action movie, and bringing it back to a friend's house, watching it, hanging out, crashing out. That was all part of the whole ritual. And now that's not there,
So I have this town. It just became like they nominated the world's like coolest small town, which I think is the dumbest thing ever. But they revolutionized it when it came to adding, like redoing all the buildings, making everything a hell of a lot newer. But me as a kid, when I used to skateboard down the streets and I used to see the old buildings, I used to see the stuff that was broken down, the graffiti. My mom worked at one of the hotels there. That's like an old style hotel. So I remember being a kid running through the halls through that. And then we had cafes in the corner, and we had all these, like, there was an old video rental place. Some of my best moments as a kid, me and my best friend would go down there with $10 that our parents gave us or something to go get a game or get a movie. We would spend $5 of it on quarters just to play the pinball machine that was in there. And then we'd spend the other five. Awesome. We'd spend the other $5 on Arizona teas and fucking hot fries with the detective on the front.
Oh man. Yeah, of course.
We just sit out on the front corner and just sit there. And we knew the woman inside the store. She knew our parents. So it was like, "Oh, what's up, guys?" And we're just like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, did your mom know you're getting?
That's great.
Does your mom know you're getting this movie? Like, "Oh yeah, she knows." And next thing you know, she didn't even know. She was out of town. She was freaking, we're watching freaking Mike Myers at the age of 6 and 7, man. Like, it was those moments that I'm going to remember. And like going through this town nowadays, I'm just seeing, is that a Panera Bread in this small town? Like, what happened now? Like, kids are like, my cousin got caught in the rain on his bike. And you know what he told me? He said, literally, I had to Uber home. When he said, my cousin got caught in the rain. He goes, I had to Uber home. That hit me so freaking hard because I was like, you Ubered home when you were like, you didn't ride your bike? No. Yeah, it's not even.
You didn't ride your bike home? Like in the rain, like the rest of us?
And his problem was, oh, dude, I was so lucky that Uber could fit my bike in his car. I looked at his parents and I said, you guys messed up. You guys messed up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I remember just walking for like miles with friends in the summertime, like with me and another friend, just to get out. Cause we live kind of in the country. And so like just to walk out and just walk to another friend's subdivision or neighborhood and that's what you did. You just walked. And if it started raining, guess what? You walked home in the rain. You know what I mean? That's part of the adventure,
What's crazy was navigating the world when you're so young on your bike and you're just like, your area of what you know and how far you can go just keeps getting a little bit farther every single day. Like your parents, don't ride your bike off the street. Okay, don't ride your bike out of the neighborhood. Okay, don't ride your bike out of our community. Next thing you know,
Right.
you're freaking riding over to your buddy's house on your bicycle, spending the night over there because you don't want to keep asking your parents to give you a lift. You're like, screw it. I'm going to ride freaking, 30 minutes out of my way, basically, just to be able to go to my buddy's house and spend the whole weekend over there. Like I used to go there in the morning, and he's a night guy. So he's up all night and he sleeps basically all day. I just would go to 7-Eleven. It would probably be like a good 20-minute ride from my house on my bike. Then next thing I know, I would just roll up to his house with nothing but like Skittles, energy drinks, and all these things. I'm like, yo, let's go. It's time to get up. We're going to play some games. And we just game out all day on a Saturday. Those are some of the funnest moments. But if I said that to like my grandparents or my parents of what I did, they're like, you didn't do anything productive. I'm like, no, because you need that sense of relaxation. I mean,
right.
They go to school, kids go to school 8 hours a day. Like that's tasking. Like
get a job.
It's like, but that's not the mainstream anymore. Now you can get a job playing video games.
That's true.
I
feel like I'm on the cusp. I feel like my generation was kind of on the cusp of like breaking ground with like internet and like internet based jobs, and then like the big boom and all that. So like I remember Oregon Trail. I remember there was one computer in like my every classroom almost, and then now it's like everywhere, and it's like most stuff is like online. People take stuff online all the time. People go to college online, and like so it's really crazy like how much that's changed. I wouldn't even be able, if I was able to quantum leap and go back in time, I would not know what to do. I'd be left behind. But maybe in the 90s I'd be all right.
What about the 90s you find so fond of?
Probably just because it's so much more familiar to me. Like the music, I still listen to all the music I listen to is still from the 90s. Most of my favorite movies are from the 90s. I'm just a 90s guy. I mean, I was born in the 80s, but I did most of my, I guess, growing up in the 90s, I guess, so to speak. That's not true. I guess you could call it growing up, but I guess I was just getting older.
So it impacted you in a certain way, just because, I mean, it does. Like like watching cartoons in the morning, depending on where you watched cartoons, it was like, that's kind of shaped your understanding. First of all, shows were a lot better back then, at least in my comparison, just because they told more of a story. They gave you more of like, there was a way to kind of connect older generations and younger generations. They had jokes for adults and kids. I was always wondering why my dad would sit and watch cartoons with me. And I realized the cartoons back then, they had hidden jokes in there for adults as well. Like,
I think that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
There's a thing in Ed, Edd n Eddy that I'd never realized, but when I don't know if you know Double D and Ed, Edd n Eddy. His parents used to leave sticky notes all over the house for him to like, oh, clean up after this, clean up after that, like a bunch of stuff, like make sure you flush. Well, one of the things in the bathroom said, don't play with yourself. And it's just in the background. And it's like, I never understood what that, like, okay, yeah, don't play around in the bathroom. Don't talk to yourself in the mirror. And my dad just like got the joke and just let it slide over my head, basically. Just like, nah. I'm just not going to open. And I see that now and I'm like, yo, I get it. They hit it so well with that. Like old style cartoons play it for both sides. They wouldn't just focus to like keeping the kids' attention.
It was the same with like Animaniacs, and there was a bunch of stuff like that, like in the early 90s that would have like a little bit of a subtext for adults. And that Batman animated series, man, I'm telling you, that 1992 Batman animated series, it is still the jam to this day. Now I watch it with my 2.5-year-old, and it's like come full circle. And I'm like, holy shit. And it still holds up, and it's still good. It's still golden. And yeah, the 90s, man, it's where it's at.
Now,
and I talk about it almost every show.
Do you do now with your podcast? So like, do you just focus on like just trying to like you and your kid trying to connect with just a lot of the stuff that you kind of grew up on, and also the stuff he's grown up on or she's grown up on?
I touch on it, but mostly, so it's kind of funny because the podcast started off with me and another guy, and we were just doing like a movie. So we do a new movie, we do an old movie, and the movie wouldn't have to be a comic book movie. It could just be a comic book related or like sci-fi or anything like that. Anything that would be like at a Comic-Con or cosplayed. And then like me and a couple other friends started getting on it. And now it's at the point now where like it rotates. Like I'll have a friend on, or sometimes I'll just rant by myself in the garage. And I talk about new shit coming out. I talk about old stuff, but then I'm also talking about what's going on in my life. And my son has actually been on a few episodes. just like in the background. And so I've actually already heard him from a baby to a toddler progress on the show as the show's progressed. So it's kind of it's weird. It's kind of like a living history kind of thing. So it's kind of cool that way. And there's no agenda, kind of like your show. I mean, I have a loose format, but it always just goes, we always just end up talking about whatever.
Yeah,
whatever and whenever.
It's
Yeah.
a way to kind of relax and also still be able to kind of bond with your kid in a way too. You know what I mean?
It's cathartic, man. I really love it. Like I started doing it in 2016. Shit. And we took some breaks. Like when my son was born, obviously it slowed down and I took a little time off. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's cathartic, and it sounds like you've been doing your show for a long time too. Because I saw you had like upwards of like over 130 episodes. Honestly, or something.
It's going to be a year coming up here in like a month.
That's how often do you post? Like once a week?
Post one every single day.
You'd go every day.
Every day is a new person. I have about 60. They're not live, so I have about 60 episodes probably saved up, and it's not even, they're just there. Like there are going to be some days I'm going to come home and I'm going to be like, I can't do one tonight. You know,
right.
Either I'm sick or, you know, something falls through or I just don't get home in time. So
yeah.
I'm going to, whenever I have free time, I try and record because we all have something to say. So if I post a new one every day, I tell people, like people are like, dude, you post so much. I can't keep up. I'm like, it's not about keeping up. You know, you find one that interests you. They all, like, it all starts off like it's just your parenthesis of really what you do or what the podcast or what you host or something's about. And then it's like, but you listen to it, it doesn't even focus on that. It just goes into completely other different topics. Like everyone's like, wow, like, you know, I was like, the best way to understand what I'm saying is just read the description. You're going to find out about the person. Then you're going to click onto it. Next thing you know, we're talking about Bigfoot. We're talking about like whatever. I'm like, it just gives people that option. Like there are billions of people in this world. And I'm trying to hear everybody's thoughts, experiences, life stories. And, you know, I believe everybody will come around. But what turns me off on it, like the way you kind of sent me the response was like, yeah, dude, I'm down. Here's my number. Hit me up. I'm like, that's what I love is someone that's like, let's just do it. It's not about like, but people nowadays see it like is like, hey, what are you trying to like? My podcast does this. What are you trying? Are you against it or something? I'm like, I'm not against it at all. But
I think people take themselves too seriously, man.
Yeah, and they're like, how many followers? What's your audience? I'm like, dude, I honestly hate YouTube on the fact that it tells me my statistics every time I log in. I'm like, no, please, just I don't care about it. The people I get on my show are people either I message or they're people that were on my podcast that tell people that they had such an awesome time on it that it goes over to other things. I'm like, good, let it spread a word of mouth. I've been on podcasts, and you know what my answer is when they say, where can people find you? I go, oh, you want to know where people can find me? They can just look up Out of the Blank, and then that's it. They're like, you're not going to give a certain description. You're not going to give details on where they can find you. I'm like, honestly, if you want to look it up.
I like it so far, man. I've only listened to the Dungeons and Dragons episode with that one guy who I guess you started talking to him about Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't get to listen to the whole thing. Well, I was like...
He does a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. And we were
exactly.
But I remember...
And that's something that I've always wanted to get into because it just looks so awesome, but it's so in-depth and like there's so much to it that I'm like, I don't know where to start. Like I know there's starter kits, but I'm like, I don't even know. And I wouldn't even have the time. So I don't even know why.
That's what I told them. I'm like, you think I know everything about all the things that people come on here about? I'm like, dude, I don't know shit. I'm like, but I'm willing to learn. That's why I'm here. Like, you know what I mean?
That's great, man.
And it's funny because I remember everybody's story. I'll remember yours when I posted up. I'll remember what episode it was. I remember what we talked about. But like, I couldn't pinpoint down to the minute of whatever we said it when we said it. But I can guarantee you, like, I remember all the people and people that still have to go up on it because, you know, it's all good conversation. It's impacted me in a way, made me a better person.
I felt like such an old man when we connected because so when you hit me up, you were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so here's my number. Cause I just assumed because I figured you were, you know, obviously farther away. We weren't going to do it in person. I was like, oh, we'll probably do Skype or FaceTime or the phone. And so I got all my gear set up and the mic set up because I was going to do like a sharecast type thing where like I would just post the episode on my channel too. And then you were like, why do you have all those mics set up if you have the iPhone? And I was just like, I'm an old man. And I just thought like, this is how I was supposed to set it up, and I've never used Zoom before. Like,
It's
I'm
funny.
just like, I'm so old school, dude.
I used to do it in person, and I used to end up getting on speakerphone and then trying to record it my way, and then it makes sure you record yours and do it that way you're talking about. But then someone showed me this, and I was like, "Yo, this is a way easier way of getting it done." And a lot of people know about this too. It's like everyone knows what Skype is, and the next thing you know, you throw this out there, and everyone's like, "Whoa, that's a way easier way." I'm like, and it's free. I'm like, what's better than that?
Absolutely, man. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing the podcast too, because um, a lot of places you would go to start one would either charge like money for like a monthly use, or they'd charge you for like a certain amount of content that you would post. So I actually started doing it via a friend's channel. He already had a channel, and he was out of like Australia, but he like hosted our podcast for us. And then from there we went to other services, and like now we're on Anchor, and it's free.
Well, the best part about Anchor is that people can find you on like any platform. Like it uploads to Spotify, it uploads to so much stuff, and like, it's a great way for people to get their content out there too. Especially like someone with your podcast, man. I appreciate you even, accepting the offer and coming down, like just willing to shoot the shit for some time, dude. And I want to give you a minute just to be able to promote your stuff because it's been awesome talking to you.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Likewise, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You can, so for the kiddies listening, my podcast is called Comic-Cons. It's on Anchor. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcast, Stitcher. It's on anywhere where podcasts are available. And we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Comic-Cons podcast. Also Instagram @Comic-Cons podcast. So I post a lot, mostly every week. An episode goes up. It's either a movie or a show or an old movie or a show. Sometimes we'll do random topics like top 5 action movies from the 90s or top 10 horror movies from the 80s or something like that. We'll just get weird with it. But yeah, man, that's it. And we actually coming up on our 200th episode like this weekend. So that's kind of crazy. 200 episodes after several years from all the breaks we've taken. So hopefully, hopefully you and I get to stay in touch and do this again, man. This was fun.
Definitely, man. We'll definitely keep in touch. Well, thanks for being on this episode Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.